you all the glory, all the worship, and all the honor. In Jesus' mighty name we prayed. Amen.
Thank you. May we take our seats. My name is Tommy Singongi. I will be your master of ceremony for this very brief program this morning. And we are here today for the launch of the study report, assessing the level of transparency in political party financing and the risk of illicit financing in Zambia. Before we go any further, I would just like to recognize representatives from cooperating partners, representatives from BBC Media Action, distinguished representatives from political parties, representatives from civil society, media houses present, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go any further with the program, we feel it is appropriate just to have a round of introductions so that we are all aware of who is with us in the house, and then we proceed with the remainder of today's program. So I'll ask that we begin from our left, and then we will move on to our right. Just your name and the institution that you are representing. Yes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brenda Philip, and I'm the chairperson, or not really chairperson, chairman for information and publicity in the movement for multi-party democracy, and I thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Davis Mumba from Fed Distribution Movement, PA. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Charles Matha. I'm a journalist from Makande Media Center. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Baron Mukupa from PAC.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mwezimba from NDC, the Media and Communication Chairperson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Wisdom Mulizwa, Deputy Legal Chairperson, Citizens First.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Angela Mshinshi from News Diggers.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Achongo Sampa from News Diggers.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Ziligone from ZMBC.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Annie Twambo, coming from Mr. Zambia.
A very good morning to everybody. My name is Achanda Chinukwe. I'm the Secretary General of the New Heritage Party. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Austin Kanda. I'm the Executive Director of Mr. Zambia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kamba Patrick from Gears Initiative Zambia.
Good morning, Tishala Kateka, New Heritage Party.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lombe Kasanda. I'm from the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection.
Good morning. My name is Peter Monangombe from the Christian Churches Monitoring Group.
Good morning. My name is Bright Chizonde from Transparency International Zambia.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Awesome. Lucia Michlufe is my name from Alliance for Accountability Advocate Zambia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fenovia Matakalan. I'm from BBC Media Action.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chimuka Nachiringa from TIZ. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zanji Sinkala from TIZ.
Good morning, everyone.
I'm Nevias Yantombo from Panos Institute, Southern Africa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bade Suzio from the EFF.
Good morning. Good morning once more. My name is Ezra Tikwizangulube, the president for NAREP.
Good morning. My name is Kauta Mwale, Deputy Secretary General, Party for National Unity and Progress.
Good morning. My name is Uchizi Ngulube from Action Aid Zambia.
Mutale Raymond is my name from Transparency International Zambia.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we can see from the introductions that we have a rich mix of political parties and civil societies present here today. And we hope that this will also contribute to the discussions that will come emanating from the research findings that we are going to have presented later this morning. At this point in time, I would like to invite the Executive Director for Transparency International Zambia, Mr. Maurice K. Nyambe, to come and give us his welcome remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singongi. I was wondering why I was being discriminated against in the introductions. But good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, very happy to see all of you this morning, and thank you so much for responding affirmatively to this invitation. Allow me, if you will, to just ride on the protocol as established by Mr. Singongi earlier. But I do want to acknowledge the three party presidents that I believe we have in our midst today. So we have Ms. Chishala Kateka, the president of the New Heritage Party. Thank you for being here. We also have Mr. Ngulube, the president of NAREP. Thank you also for being here. And earlier on, I saw Mr. Kasonde Mwenda, the president of the EFF. I believe he has just stepped out, but he is here with us this morning. So it's a great honor and privilege for me to stand before you today to give these very brief remarks, and they will indeed be very brief, as we launch our study report on assessing the level of transparency in political party financing and the risk of illicit financing in Zambia. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for your dedication to advancing our nation's democratic processes through your participation in this study, for those of you who participated, but also through your presence here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, TIZ has, over a very long period now, been working on strengthening governance processes in Zambia and advocating for the regulation of political party and campaign financing so as to foster democracy, transparency, and accountability across the political landscape. As many of you in here will no doubt know, Article 60 of the Constitution of Zambia provides for the regulation of political party financing in Zambia. However, we are yet to see Zambia enacting an enabling subsidiary law to give operational effect to this very important constitutional provision. As a result of this very glaring omission, political parties in Zambia do not disclose their sources of funding and do not publish their financial reports or subject them to public scrutiny. The need to correct this anomaly cannot be overemphasized. With that in mind, and in a bid to generate evidence for corrective action, TIZ, with the general support of BBC Media Action, through the Deepening Democracy Facility, conducted this study that we are launching today to investigate the level of transparency among Zambia's political parties and also to assess the risk of illicit financing within our political landscape. One of the key identified risks in this respect is the potential for illicit financing in politics and opacity in political party financing, which can actually facilitate it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are glad to state that this study has now been finalized, and it is our pleasure to share our findings through the study report that we are launching this morning. I encourage you all today to approach this discussion and this report with a shared sense of purpose. It is our considered belief that in conducting this study, TIZ and the BBC Media Action are making a significant contribution to advocacy efforts to demand for reforms that will improve Zambia's political discourse and strengthen the very fabric of our democracy. Let us stand together, united in our commitment to ensuring a fairer, more transparent, and more accountable Zambia for all. We look forward to a very fruitful discussion today, and one that will pave the way for Zambia's continued progress in the fight for clean, transparent political spaces, as well as fair elections. Once again, I would like to welcome all of you and thank you for your time, your commitment, as well as your willingness to engage in this very critical process. With that, I thank you, and may God bless us all.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause for Mr. Nyambe. Thank you. At this point in time, we want to proceed to the presentation of key findings of the study report, which is going to be delivered to us by Mr. Bright Chizonde, who is TIZ's Advocacy Policy and Research Manager. Mr. Chizonde, welcome to the podium.
Thank you very much, and I would like to ride on the protocol already established by the Executive Director. Okay, so presenting the findings of the report, assessing the level of transparency in political party financing and the risk of illicit financing in Zambia. So let's start with the outline of the presentation. So we'll give some background information. I want to do a little bit on background information because I believe it's a somewhat contentious issue. So I think it is good for us to address some of the key questions that certain stakeholders will have around the regulation of political party financing. Then I'll move on to the objectives of this research, the methodology, and then we'll present the findings. The last part will be the conclusions and recommendations. So let's get started. I think the starting point, which is maybe a good way of starting, is first of all to understand what we are talking about, what is this issue. So I'll start with the definition. So political finance refers to the way in which political parties and candidates raise and spend money for regular activities and election campaigns, and the political finance systems used to regulate this financing. So when we say political finance, that is what we are referring to. Something that is key to note in that definition is that it is not just about financing for the campaign or for the election. It is also about financing for everyday normal activities or operations for political parties. But why should countries regulate political party financing? Why should we care about regulating political party financing? Away from the obvious question that this may be an issue of, like we are civil society actors, when you talk about regulation, there is a discussion around media regulation, right? So people usually associate that with control, and it may bring about undesirable outcomes because government now is taking center stage in terms of controlling what is happening in the media, in the civil society, or in this case, among political parties. considering that government is actually made up of political party that formed government, it becomes very contentious when it comes to issues of regulation. So that is why I'm saying it is important to start with the background to learn what is the rationale around regulating political party financing. The first reason is to avoid funding determined outcomes. Funding of political parties and candidates can have a more significant impact on the fairness of electoral processes than any other factor. So you don't want a situation where a particular candidate without a clear manifesto or a heart for the people can win an election just because they have money. I hope we agree with that, right? If a person just comes up, if you agree with me when it comes to some political parties, and if you're talking about regional voting in some areas of the country, what would really matter is whether the candidate is put on a particular party ticket. And if they can buy their way to the adoption, it means that eventually they will end up becoming a member of parliament. So if you don't regulate issues of financing, you have a situation where funding actually determines the majority of the outcome of elections. The second reason why we are talking about regulating political party finances is to limit uneven access and then combat corruption. The corruption part is why TIZ, of course, is involved and interested in these issues of regulating political party financing. So while many opposition political parties may struggle to raise adequate funding for their electoral activities, ruling parties can extract resources from the state to fund their electoral campaigns. Okay, so if we don't regulate, this may happen, where there will be an uneven access to public resources, because one party, as I said, is in government, and so they can have more access to resources than the other political parties. And then you also end up with corruption happening, maybe through the procurement process, patronage in the procurement systems, anything else that will lead to the funding of the ruling party. So now I'll turn to the standard for integrity in political party finance. So what is the solution? What is being recommended? So Transparency International, and for those of you that may not know, Transparency International is our mother international organization. And so it envisions a political finance system in which voters know who funds political parties and candidates. All funding represents the legitimate interests of voters, and no funding creates undue advantage. So that is the ideal situation. So that is the ideal situation. We want to have a situation where the funding of political party candidates does not create undue advantage. Hams, can I change the mic? It's switching off.
Can you try this one?
It's switching off. Maybe the battery is down.
Can you try this one?
Hello? Okay. Sorry about that. So we want to have a situation where funding does not create an undue advantage. So transparency and clean money are the first two principles in the TI standard for integrity in political party finances, as the public has the right to know how money influences politics, since information on funding and expenditure provides essential context for making informed decisions at the ballot box. Now, I want to explain that a little bit. So if a particular political party is being funded by, let's say, key actors in the mining sector, they are the ones that have funded this political party, and this party has won the election. Obviously, there will be some issue that is going to be observed around policies in the mining sector. For example, tax policy will end up being adjusted to be favorable, for example, of private businesses in the mining sector. And so when you are voting, you need also information around who is funding particular political parties, because that may determine policy direction after the party wins the elections. So transparency also deters illicit interest from seeking to buy political influence and prevents the channeling of public funds to political parties. We already talked about this, but here we're talking about limiting the influence of certain interests on political parties, because if there is transparency, then it's clear actually who is funding this political party, and the party is in open. There are no secrets in terms of what deals are made for this money to go to a particular political party and what requirements will be there. Just to mention, most of the times, like business interests or foreign interests, they don't just fund political party out of the goodwill of their hearts, right? There are reasons why they would put in this money into a particular political party. For your own information, I think the other study that we actually undertook would even show that some private businesses would want to hedge their risk to the extent that they may fund both ruling parties as well as opposition political parties, so that whatever direction the wind will take, their interests are secured in terms of access, for example, to public contracts. So they don't just give money for the sake of giving money. Most of the times they have an interest why they are funding political parties. So I'll quickly go through the elements of the clean money principle as well as the transparency principle, and then I'll come back to answer a particular question. Why should political parties be interested in these issues, even though there is no law in the case of Zambia? So let me start with the elements of the clean money principle. So according to Transparency International, clean money principle, political funding must voice the legitimate interests of voters. This means political finance must originate from legitimate sources and use legal channels. And then there are some key elements, which were 5, and these formed the key principles or the issues we were looking at in the research. Number 1, checking the sources of donations before accepting. Where is this donation coming from? Who is the person behind the donation? Number 2, refusing and returning suspicious or anonymous donations. If you don't have the information and the person doesn't want to disclose who is the actual source of the information, then the political party must consider refusing or returning that suspicious source of the donation. Number 3, declaration of company beneficial ownership information when making donations. If it's coming from a company, then they may be need to know the beneficial owners behind that particular company. Restricting donations from companies participating in public procurement. So companies that are participating in public procurement would mean that if they donate to you, there may be an interest later on in future for them to get access to public contracts. And so you restrict that access. Then the last one, banning donations from foreign interests. So there's another consideration that donations should come from only local interests, because foreign interests may have their own agenda that you may not understand. So you also ban donations from foreign interests. What about transparency? What are the key elements when we talk about transparency as a principle? I'll start with a definition of transparency. So transparency is above all the capacity to review what the public deserves to know, but remains concealed. So key word there is the public deserves to know. Whatever information the public deserves to know and remains concealed, you want to review that information. That is transparency. So full disclosure requires independent agencies that are equipped to verify compliance and rules that the information disclosed is of good quality, accurate, and timely. The key elements, again, 5 elements that constitute the transparency principle. Number 1, the keeping of detailed financial records. So as a political party, you need to have detailed financial records. That's number 1. 2, maintenance of designated bank accounts. That means that your transactions are not in cash. They are being routed or being managed through a commercial bank account. C, reporting of both incomes and expenditure to oversight bodies. So you then report your incomes and expenditure to oversight bodies. D, submission of special interim disclosures before election day. So when it's a year where there are no elections, for example, then what will be required is just for you to submit your incomes and expenditure. As you lead up to the election, because of the fact that usually there is a rise or an increase in the amount of cash flow that comes in or donations that come in as you lead up to an election. So for that particular reason, there's supposed to be a special interim disclosure before an election day. And then E, publication of political finance reports from political parties. Publication entails that there is access for public scrutiny. The information is now made publicly available in terms of the standing of the political party. Now, obviously, there's a question to say, but why should political parties do all this, right? Why should political parties embrace transparency and clean money as principles to ensure that there is control in the way they manage their political party financing? But why? What is the rationale for this? So I want to just briefly talk about the responsibility of political parties. So in this study, as well as other studies on political financing, the conceptual framework that is usually used is that of the principal agent model. So this presents a framework for understanding that policy, this particular policy problem, both from the policy implementation and the public policy making perspectives. Essentially, what we are saying here is that the people are the principals. They support political parties who are agents to represent their interest in fostering development. Is it not so? Do you agree on that? So when you form a political party, you want to run for elections and then eventually be in government. So you're actually working as an agent of the people. The people, being the principals, are going to support that political party so that that political party can help them in terms of fostering development. So that is the framework under which you're operating. Therefore, we say that there arises a principal agent problem when illicit funding of political parties leads to conflict of interest among political parties in such a way that the interest of the people who are the principals is no longer a priority. Okay? So what happens when someone else gives you money, funds you extensively for you to win the election, and then you are in government? Now, the people who are your principals are no longer a priority. You have another person, you have another master who you now have to answer to. So it creates that conflict of interest. So despite the lack of substantive legislation, political parties have the responsibility to ensure that they remain unencumbered by the influence of political donors to avoid corruption and illicit sources of funding. So this is the reason why we are saying this is a critical issue. So even though there is no particular law that is requiring political parties to do all of these things in Zambia, of course, apart from the constitutional provision, we are saying that there is still a responsibility for political parties to consider these issues. Because if they don't, they will end up having another master other than the principal who are supposed to be the people. And that master is going to determine policy. What we say, when we say policy, there's policy capture. It means someone else is now guiding you in terms of the policy direction. So they can be policy capture. They can also be state capture completely, in the sense that now your entire government is quiet. Have you seen situations where a particular person is elected into office and then it feels like there is no leader? It feels like it has all gone quiet. It feels like there's no direct voice, clear voice in terms of direction. This person seems like they have been imprisoned. They cannot make decisions anymore because they are captured. So let's now turn to the research objectives, and then we'll move on to the methodology. So we were guided by 3 objectives: assess the level of transparency and accountability among political parties in Zambia with regards to the management of political party funds. Number 2, assess the current efforts and policies of political parties aimed at mitigating the risk of illicit financing. So on one end, we wanted to look at what is the level of transparency and accountability? What structures are there? Are they really transparent? What is the level currently among political parties? We were also honest that there may be some things political parties have actually already put in place to enforce these issues we're talking about. So what efforts have they taken? What policies have they put in place to mitigate the risk of illicit financing? Number three, investigate the sources of funding for political parties in Zambia and assess the risk of illicit financing. So here we're looking at where does the money come from? What are roughly which areas? What are the key components or the key sources of funding for political parties in terms of not looking at individuals, but just looking at categories of sources. And then looking at the level of risk of illicit financing. At which level of risk are we as a country? So in terms of the approach or the design for this particular study, we employed a quantitative survey to provide initial results, followed by desk-based research to provide a deeper context for the quantitative results. So we did not do key informant interviews for this one, particularly because we were trying to create indices or indicators to assess the level of transparency and the risk of illicit financing. So we actually have scores, and so we took the quantitative approach. This approach allowed for a deeper understanding of the quantitative results using information drawn from media articles, research studies, relevant policies, laws, and other sources. So data was collected during the period March to May 2025 using face-to-face interviews. So just also a note that we were not just sending them out and expecting responses. We sent data collectors to meet the political party officials, to sit with them so as to clarify some of the questions and so to make sure that we have high quality information. In terms of the breakdown of the methodology, as I said, we had a quantitative survey. The survey targeted 40 political parties that participated in an NDI-funded political integrity project, which was implemented by Transparency International Zambia. So I think that was critical for us because of background. We wanted political parties that we have worked with, we have explained these issues to, and so that was just so that this study is adding to the already existing engagement we had with those political parties. But we took notice that we needed to include at least the 16 political parties that fielded presidential candidates in the 2021 elections so that we don't miss out those key actors as well. So we then had a comprehensive list of the political parties. An important note at the bottom there, the targeting of larger and more established political parties focused the study on participants with the highest risk and expected transparency. There is an assumption that we're working with here. We are saying that if there is risk of illicit financing, which may translate into risk of state capture or policy capture, then it means that larger political parties are more important for us to assess than the smaller one. Because just for your information, because larger political parties are more, likely to win an election. And so then the risk of policy capture and state capture becomes more elevated. So we targeted larger, more established political parties and not smaller political parties. Again, there is also an assumption we were working with. The second one is that we thought larger political parties perhaps have got more systems and policies put in place, and they are likely to have more transparency measures. So maybe we are going to observe higher transparency among the larger political parties. I will tell you from the onset that that theory was, it was disproved through the results. And I will explain further on why that is not the case. So I'll turn now to the measures of transparency and the risk of illicit financing, just for you to have context in terms of how we got the scores that we use to indicate the level of transparency and the risk. So in following Transparency International Standard for Integrity in Political Finance, the study made use of the elements of the transparency and clean money principles to develop indicators to measure transparency and the risk of funding. The transparency indicator ranged from 0 very low transparency to 5, very high transparency. It increased with the number of elements present in a particular political party in relation to the transparency principle. So I'll show you very briefly the elements. So these are the elements. Let's start with the transparency principle. I have already mentioned this. Record keeping, use of bank account, reporting to oversight entity, submission of special disclosures before elections, publication of financial account statements for voter access. So those are the elements we are looking at in terms of transparency principle. So essentially what we are doing here, there are 5. So if you are 0, you're at 0. If none of them are present, that means your political party is at 0. Very low transparency. If you have all of these, then you're at 5, which is the very highest in terms of transparency. Then the risk of illicit financing, again, ranges from 0, very low risk, to 5, very high risk. But this is the opposite, so we are flipping this one. It's reduced with a number of elements present in a particular political parties with respect to the clean money principle. So again, here we have 5 elements: due diligence and know your donor, no anonymous donations, request for beneficial ownership information for corporate donations, no declaration for companies no donations from companies participating in public procurement, and no donations from foreign interest. So if we ask particular questions to the political party around these 5 elements and they give us responses. So if for them they tick all these 5, what does that mean? They are at which level of risk? If they tick all 5, they are at which level of risk? Yeah, are we together? Oh, I'm talking to myself. So these are the things that you expect the political parties to do, right? They will not accept anonymous donations, for example. But if they tick all of these 5, it means that they are at low risk, right? Yes. And if they tick none, it means that they are at high risk. Is it not so? Yes. So it's the opposite in terms of flipping it. So let's go now to the results. We'll start through the findings, and the first part of the results, we'll look at the characteristics of the political parties that we had in our sample, so that we just know context in terms of who is responding and which parties are we dealing with in terms of actual outcomes. So obviously we targeted 40, but we ended up with 28 political parties in the full research that we did. So the majority of the 28 political parties that we sampled, which is 57%, participated in the 2021 general elections, and out of which 39 participated at local government level and 36 at both the parliamentary and presidential levels. So just giving you some background. Why am I giving you this? Because we are not going to name the political parties. So we are not going to say these are the 28 political parties. No way. Because we want to embrace confidentiality, right? So that we don't say these are the parties that do not have bank accounts, for example. We don't want to say that. So we will not name the political parties, but you need to know a bit of some characteristics of these political parties, and that is the first part. Distribution of party leadership. So in terms of leadership of these political parties, this is how they were distributed. The majority of the political parties sampled were larger and more established, as they had political party structures across the entire country. Only 7% had leadership only in Lusaka province, while 92% had either leadership in Lusaka and some provinces across the country, or leadership in Lusaka and all provinces across the country. Just going back to that issue that these were well-established, more established, larger political parties, and that is where we thought the higher risk is going to be found. Distribution of administrative structure as well. Out of the 28 political parties sampled, 79% had secretariat offices located in Lusaka province, while only 14% had administrative offices in all provinces. Further, only 28% of the sampled political parties had full-time staff employed by the political party at the secretariat or administrative offices. A bit of a note there already, which is a bit concerning. In terms of administrative structure, most of the political parties are centrally located, so they are mostly in Lusaka. Okay, so you don't have wide distribution of leadership in terms of administrative, organizing of a political party. I don't know whether this is what works well. Maybe you'll give us information later on as political parties. An issue of concern is only 29% of the sampled political parties have full-time employed staff. That talks to capacity of the political parties. Because the things we are talking to are about issues to do with having books of accounts, those require that you actually have staff that is employed to, undertake those issues. Policy and oversight environment. We also asked a question around this. Almost all the political parties sampled, which is 96%, had party constitutions, while 71% reported that they also had party manifestos developed before the 2021 general elections. So here we put a note in the full report, which again will be made public online, that for us, when we evaluated, we only saw 3 manifestos before the 2021 elections from 3 political parties, which I will not mention. So maybe there is an issue here about wide dissemination of these manifestos. So as you are thinking about developing the manifestos for the next elections, or for the period after, from the next election towards the other elections, so 2026 and upwards in terms of your manifesto, it will be important to think about dissemination of that manifesto, because for us, we only saw 3 when we were doing our analysis of political party manifestos before the 2021 elections. But we are informed that by the political party representative that actually 71% had political party manifestos. Further, the analysis revealed that 46% of the political parties had finance management manuals or policies. This is already concerning, this is less than 50% of the political parties. Remember, well-established larger political parties, 46% only had finance manuals. This entails that these are the ones who know how money should be managed. There is a clear guideline in their political parties in terms of how money should be withdrawn, should be spent, what process, who are the signatories, things like that, and well documented. Only 46%. The rest, managers comes in, someone spends it. You don't know how they actually spend it or what rules they follow to spend that money. 50% reported that they had integrity and anti-corruption policies. The policies may not be written, they may be just a position, just for an extension. So at least they have a position when it comes to issues to do with corruption as a political party. Level of political finance transparency. So we will start with, of course, transparency, and then we move on to the level of illicit financing risk. So out of the 28 political parties sampled, only 25% reported that they kept detailed financial records. 25% reported that they kept detailed financial records and managed all incomes and expenditures through a commercial bank account, while 68% reported that they submitted annual returns, which do not include income and expenditure accounts to the Registrar of Societies. So 25% reported that they kept detailed financial records. Flipping it, it means what percentage do not keep? What percentage do not keep any financial records? 70? 75%. Is it not so? Are you concerned? That's quite high, right? So there is no record in terms of how money is actually spent. 75% of the well-established larger political parties. So among the 28 political parties sampled, no political party reported that they published financial records for public scrutiny by voters. So they may develop those financial accounts, which are the 25%, but they are secrets. They are not made public to the voters. That is the state. So based on these key findings and the elements that I've mentioned, we have the results in terms of the level of transparency. So here are the transparency scores for the political parties that we sampled. So the majority of the political parties, 75%, had a transparency score of 0 or 1, which was categorized as very low transparency, followed by 14% that had a score of 2 and were categorized as low transparency. Only 11% of the political parties had a score of 3 and were categorized as moderate transparency. So while no political party scored a 4, which is high transparency, or a 5, which is very high transparency. So here is the result. This is the situation. Majority of the political parties, 75%, have low transparency, very low transparency. Another 14% adding to the 75 of the score are categorized to having low transparency. So very low and low transparency, you're talking about 75% plus 14%. That's a very high percentage, right? In terms of transparency situation. We did a bit of analysis just to understand if we are saying these parties, political parties have low transparency or very low transparency, what are these political parties doing? So in terms of just cross analysis. So our analysis reviewed that out of the political parties that participated in the 2021 general elections, these are actually participating in elections. 75% had very low transparency. Very low transparency and able to participate in elections. With 33% of these political parties participating in local government elections, 38% participating in parliamentary elections, and another 38% participating in presidential elections. So the parties with low transparency, very low transparency, 38% of them participated in the presidential elections, but they have very low transparency. So that is concerning. For example, they don't even have a bank account, but they are participating in presidential elections. Okay? They don't have a bank account, but they participate in presidential elections. So what happens when they win? We don't know how the money was being used in their political party. There are no records. Who donated to them? There are no records. That is very, very concerning. We also established that the average years of existence of political parties with moderate transparency was less than 9 years, as compared to 10 years for political parties with low transparency and 12 years for political parties with very low transparency. This is where I was saying our theory was, was cancelled, suggesting that older political parties have lower levels of transparency. Older political parties have lower levels of transparency. So here's now my new theory. After the other theory was, was rejected by the research. My new theory is that as a party gets more established and older over time, it gets closer to a possibility of winning an election. As a result, it decides to close up its books because more money is coming in, and so it becomes more opaque, less transparent as it goes towards winning an election. So that is very concerning. That is now the new theory that we're going to move with. Further, 75% of the political parties that held conventions to select party office holders before the 2021 general elections, and 71% of the political parties with leadership in Lusaka and all provinces had very low transparency, thus suggesting that well-established political parties in Zambia have very low levels of transparency. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, transparency is more likely when there are strong legal frameworks for party financing and disclosure. Political parties receive public funding, which often comes with transparency requirements, and civil society and media are active in monitoring political behavior. So we believe that this explains the outcome that we have observed. These elements are largely absent in the Zambian context, which may explain the observed low levels of transparency among political parties. By saying this, we are saying, one, there is no strong legal framework, two, there is no political party funding, and then three, there is very limited civil society and media scrutiny of political party funding. So consequently, we have a situation where even well-established political parties have very low levels of transparency. What are the sources of funding for the political parties? I think this was expected, no shocks here, a lot. The funding sources, the top sources of political financing for the sampled political parties were party leadership, 82%, and party membership, 79%. So that is where the money is coming from. 32% of the political parties also received donations from local businesses. Another 21% received donations from foreign businesses. Financing from members of parliament, MPs, was the least source at 11% of the political parties. Of course, because this is contingent on you actually having a member of parliament to start with. And so it was a very, the lowest source of financing. But it also explains perhaps why there is limited transparency, because if money is coming from party leadership, then what questions do the party members have, or the structure of that political party have to question how monies are being spent? This is my political party. I am the leader of this political party. 82% of the money is my money from my business. Then how are you going to ask me, where is the bank account? Where is the financial statement? So what interest do you have? So because this is my money. So I think that explains slightly why there's low levels of transparency as well. The risk of illicit financing of political parties in Zambia. So here we are looking at the risk profile of the political parties. And here is the risk. The majority of the sampled political parties, 65%, had risk scores of 4, which is high risk, or 5, very high risk. So 65% scored high risk or very high risk, while 4% had risk scores of 3, which is moderate risk. However, 25% had scores of 2, which is low risk, and another 7% had risk scores of 0 or 1, which we combined and categorized as very low risk. So that is the profile. So we have on one end, very low transparency, 75%. Then on the other spectrum, we have 65% as high risk or very high risk in terms of illicit financing. So they are closed up in terms of their books, and they accept almost anything in terms of donations. That is the message here. They accept anything from any source in terms of donations. Some key elements in terms of the risk profile. So this risk profile is due to some of these key results that we obtained. Number one, 50% of the sampled political parties do not conduct due diligence on the source of financing before accepting donations. They just accept. 64% accepted anonymous donations. It just hits your account and you accept. You don't question where it came from. Or someone just brings to say, this is the briefcase, receive. You don't even know where it came from. You get it and you start campaigning. You buy campaign materials. Anonymous donation, 64%. 82% do not request beneficial ownership information before accepting donations from businesses or companies. So a company just comes, we want to give you money for the elections, and they receive 82%. They don't ask who is the ultimate owner behind this particular company. 79% accepted donations from political parties participating in public procurement or in business with the government. So they didn't care, or they're not concerned about whether this party is actually is participating in public procurement. 75% of the political parties accepted donations from foreign interests, including foreign governments, foreign entities, and foreign companies. So again here, all these percentages are quite high, very, very high, and it's quite concerning. So a lot of things need to be put in place among the political parties to reduce this risk of illicit financing. Another issue we thought is critical to assess is the risk versus election participation. So further analysis revealed that out of the political parties that participated in the 2021 general elections, 69% had high risk or very high risk of illicit financing, with 44% of these political parties participating in local government elections, 39% participating in parliamentary elections, and 33% participating in presidential elections. Very high risk of illicit financing running for election as president. When you accept donations from any person, anyone can donate to you. Let me now make conclusions and the key recommendations. So the study established that there is limited transparency and accountability among political parties in Zambia, as 75% of the political parties assessed had very low transparency in the management of political financing. The lack of political finance regulation and limited scrutiny of political parties by civil society and the media exacerbates the situation, as no political party has reported to have been publishing financial information for public scrutiny by voters. The study also established that there is high risk of illicit financing of political parties in Zambia, as over 64% of the political parties had either high risk or very high risk of illicit financing. It is also evident that the majority of the political parties have not put in place adequate systems and policies to mitigate the risk of illicit financing. So that is the picture in terms of the key conclusions. Before I turn to the recommendations, just to emphasize again, this information is self-reported information by the political parties. So if this picture is concerning, this is not TIZ which making this picture or painting this picture. These political parties reported this situation themselves when we asked them questions. They reported they don't have bank accounts, and then it led to this particular risk profile. Okay, so this is self-reported information. So what do we recommend? We have three categories of recommendations: one to government, two to political parties, and then three to other stakeholders. So government should enact a law to regulate political party financing and spending to enhance transparency and accountability of political parties. So if you want to be in government, you want to win an election, when you're in government, everything is going to be open. Is it not so? When you form government, everything, financial dealings is supposed to be open. So my question is, if you're a political party stakeholder, why don't you start now? Before you win the elections. Why don't you start now? What is the challenge with being transparent now so that you build that profile and you get used to it, to opening up everything, so that when you win an election, everything eventually becomes open. So there's need for a law to regulate political party financing. Number two, strengthen the oversight role of the Registrar of Societies by requiring political parties to submit income and expenditure statements as part of their annual returns. You say, oh, they'll control us. But you need to be transparent. So if you're getting money from legitimate sources, what would be the problem to show this is how much money you've gotten, this is how much money you spent on the different items? In any case, they are also monitoring the bank accounts and everything else, right? And the FIC is also busy checking transactions. So it's just okay to be open. What about political parties? What can they do? Strengthen financial management by developing financial management manuals and conducting financial transactions through designated commercial banks. At a very minimum, we're saying, let's develop financial management manuals, procedures, policies which are clear on how monies are going to be managed in the political party. And at the very least, let's have a commercial bank account as this, where you are running all the incomes, or everything is moving through the bank account. Makes it easy then for you to generate financial accounts or reports. Number two, conduct due diligence checks before accepting donations. It's for your own good, for you to know who is behind the donation, because you may not manage to fulfill their requirements after you receive the donation and spend it. Okay, so due diligence is very important, just to know who is behind the donation. And then three, publish income and expenditure accounts for public scrutiny to enhance transparency and accountability. Your voters need to know who is financing you, so that when they are voting, they know that they are actually voting for particular policies that may go in this particular direction. Okay, because where the money comes from may influence the policy direction. What about civil society and media? What can they do? So increase scrutiny of political party funding by conducting assessments and studies on the management and the sources of financing. Then lastly, increase awareness of the importance of transparency in political party financing among voters. So voters also need to put that demand that they need to know how the political party that they are voting for manages its finances. So for that demand to happen, there's need for awareness raising on the part of the public. Thank you very much for your attention. Questions? Should I take maybe a few questions before we go to? Yes, please. Is there a mic for her so that people online can also hear her? Can we have the other mic? Just a minute.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that very informative presentation. It's good that we are going in that direction, taking interest in what needs to happen in the political space. One of your findings, one of your findings is that there is no transparency in terms of income and expenditure accounts being availed to the public.
Yes.
I would beg to differ with that.
Okay.
Because in fact, one of your last recommendations is that part of the returns to the registrar should include an income and expenditure account.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that that is a requirement, and we do submit, at least NHP, we submit income and expenditure accounts to the registrar annually. Now, when you submit to the registrar, in our view, you are actually publicizing. It means it's now public information. So if you go into the corporate world, for example, a company doesn't need to go around waving to people to say, here are the income and expenditure.
Yeah.
You submit the returns to the registrar. Yeah, of companies.
Yeah.
So once we submit to the registrar of societies, we assume that those records are now available, meaning the public have got access to it.
Okay.
Unless you are saying we should be putting those income and expenditure accounts in the press or something like that, which I think would add to the cost of running a party.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do submit to the registrar. And in our view, our obligation ends there. So if voters are really interested in this, which at this stage, I think we are not that sophisticated, that, voters will go and say, yeah, all they are interested in is the money, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting question. She's saying that the obligation ends on at the point of submission to the registrar of societies. Very interesting. You are aware that I think it's similar to the submission of declaration of what? Assets and what? Liabilities for presidential candidates. The obligation is to submit to ECZ. Is it still public information? The public doesn't still have that information. We don't know how much presidential candidates declared up to now. This is almost the other election coming. We're talking about 2021. So yes, it is your obligation to submit, but as we said, it may be a responsibility for you to move a bit beyond just the obligation to submit to a particular society, because they may decide to receive and then still keep that information. But it's true that the public needs to know that particular information. So if you can go a step further to make it public, and I agree with you, of course, it may add to the cost if you are using media, but I don't know, do we have websites for political parties which are working? That may be another way which you can perhaps use that information. Just put it on your website as published financial income statements, everything else, so that at least the voters that are subscribed to your political party, they can easily go to the website and check and see the statements. Yeah. Any question? Any other question? Okay, let me get this one, then I'll come back that side.
Thank you.
I also welcome comments.
Yeah, sure. The comment is, this is a very good study, and I think it brings to light a lot of issues that I think as civil society, when we've been calling on the issues of transparency and accountability for political parties, this is the answer to a number of unanswered questions. But I just wanted to find out, as we were doing the study, did those that hold the general assemblies, I don't know if you took interest to look at that, do they have a likely chance of having more transparency procedures in, of course, with regards to political party financing? Because my understanding is that when they're having those assemblies and conventions, among the things that they'll be discussing is the finances of the political party. So did we take an interest to look at that? But also maybe to add to your theories, and I think you've already alluded to it as Madam Kateka was responding or asking a question. I think this then leads to the theory that this is why we have challenges to have the issue of the asset and liability transparency or disclosure, because if we're having challenges to have these, political parties declare where they are getting the funding and how the finances are coming in, and individuals are just financing the political parties, then it becomes difficult for them to disclose the assets and the liabilities. Maybe it could be added to the theories that you have you've been having in your research. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I agree with the second comment. Yes, that is true. I think it's concerning that majority of the money is coming from party leadership, as you said, and that may truly explain why it's very difficult for us to have transparency, because this money belongs to a particular individual or group of individuals in the leadership structure. So they'll be asking, why should I then disclose all of this to everyone in the party structure? So that is true. On your first question, we haven't done an interaction between holding of General Assembly, but we have the information in the survey. So that is something perhaps bilaterally you can request, and then we do an assessment to check how the percentages will come out to see the interaction between transparency and the holding of General Assemblies for political parties. But since we asked both questions, so we can do that assessment. Yeah. I go back this side. Let me start where now? At the back, and then I'll come there. At the back, I saw the hand, that hand first. So by the way, we are going to have a panel discussion with political party officials here. So not all the questions are for me. Some of the questions should go to the political party officials. Yes.
All right. Wisdom from Citizens First.
Yes.
Okay. So for me, I'm raising a few concerns.
Okay, please.
Because being in a political party, I'm seeing, I want to be as realistic as possible.
Yes.
So my first concern is the protection of individuals or institutions that are funding political parties.
Yes.
So as Citizens First, we don't just distribute our manifesto to the citizens. We also introduce, we distribute to institutions. So now you'll find there are people that like the policies. For example, let me give like the health policy. If a few private hospitals say, we like the health policies of Citizens First, and we would like to support this cause. Now, if they begin to support us and we publicize that, they are at the risk of them being polarized or them being attacked by the ruling party. That's one concern. So now, how, if we are going to publicize the people that support us financially, how will they remain protected? And the other thing I'm also looking at is politicians, people who are in active politics, hardly get into jobs. A lot of private institutions do not want to employ people that are in active politics for the safety of their companies. Now, if politicians who have to find means to survive, look, let me put it this way. If politicians who are not even in employment are failing to fund themselves, then if we begin to publicize those who are funding political parties, the political party will suffocate financially, because you find there are people in active politics who are failing to fund themselves. Then the other concern is us going in the direction of the government funding political parties. I don't think we are in the space of us. We're in the capacity of us beginning to depend on the government to fund us as political parties, because we have got 3 dates to facilitate, and then we channel a lot of money to political parties. I think that in itself is not necessary. And I also think, yes, depending on government to support us will limit the operations of the political party. Because if we as citizens first say, okay, we want to hold rallies every Friday, and the money we're depending on is coming from government, that in itself, the government may not be able to fund us. Let me just give an example. For someone to stand nowadays, in Lusaka especially, as member of parliament, it can cost up to 3.8 million kwacha. Does the government have that money to give an individual who's standing? Now imagine 16 political parties are standing in one constituency. Does the government have that money? And mind you, in Zambia, as of 2022, since I last checked with the Electoral Commission of Zambia, Zambia had 109 political parties then. So now, does the government have that money to facilitate political parties? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll start with the last question. Government ability to fund political parties. I would say to that, we will not start with huge amounts. Remember, the concern we have here is when there is a funding by state funding of political party or government funding of political party, it increases transparency because there's a requirement to disclose how you spent that money. So the starting point would be not to start with huge amounts of money, okay? It will start with small amounts of money based on budget, of course. So it doesn't mean that we're going to be funding in millions of each political party, maybe small amounts of money to start with. As long as we still attach that requirement to disclose how the money is spent, for us, we gain in terms of transparency. Then there should obviously also be a criteria for funding. It's not every political party that perhaps may be funded, especially in the initial phase. So there may be a criteria that needs to be developed so that a political party needs to rise to a level of public concern, right? So it's not just someone starts a political party today and then they get access to public funding. So it must be maybe a well-established party, maybe which has run for elections before, or it has accumulated some certain number of votes in the previous elections. A criteria needs to be developed so as to not include just any person who has formed a political party because of the limitation of financing. So that would be my answer to the last one. In terms of transparency, I think most stakeholders perhaps may not know that transparency is not always absolute transparency. And I'll explain. It doesn't mean that when we say transparency in terms of political party funding, it automatically means that every individual in the country should know about how much you received and exactly who gave you the money. Usually transparency is based on thresholds or degrees. So first of all, maybe in the initial phase, you may be talking about transparency to the extent that you disclose maybe to a particular entity, public entity. It's about strengthening that entity to be autonomous, making sure that it's not going to share that information with other wider stakeholders who you feel can then infringe on the rights of the people that are giving you resources. So maybe it's a question of which entity do you believe is independent, autonomous enough, or can protect that secrecy enough to receive those declarations such that they will not trigger that particular retribution you're talking about. So transparency does not always mean it's absolute transparency, that no, open it up, everyone should know. Anyone should just wake up and get access to this information. There may even be criteria on how particular law enforcement agencies, for example, who are looking for such information, may need to meet some particular threshold, maybe to get maybe an order from a judge, for example, to open up that information. So it's not just going to be complete open access. That's not what transparency entails all the time. I know when we talk about transparency all the time, we think about 100% transparency, but it has decreased. And then disclosure thresholds. So for concerns about public businesses which are giving resources, which are funding political party, you may consider thresholds. They are informed in advance. They are, for example, if you say there's a 1 million kwacha threshold, if you donate less than 1 million kwacha, then it means your name cannot be publicly mentioned in the report because it's less than. The consideration is if it's smaller, then it means that the degree of influence that you may exert on a political party will be smaller, right? Because you haven't given a huge amount of money. But then there's a threshold which triggers. So even the business person knows, if I were to give 5 million kwacha, 10 million kwacha to the particular political party, it means that I am also willing and ready for me to be named as the source of this money. So again, that's another consideration. But of course, this is an ongoing discussion. So we can't say we have answers. These have been implemented in some of the developed countries, other countries that are also developing. But all the time, the case for Zambia may be different. So we have to also ask our questions, what would work best for Zambia? What we are doing here is to present the situation, what we feel is ideal, the situation in terms of transparency and addressing the risk of illicit financing. But in terms of customizing that, what really works for Zambia, what you feel relevant, I think that's an ongoing discussion. We are not closed in terms of that discussion. So your views are welcome. So we can all debate and discuss that even further. Okay. I hope these are comments now. We need to, yeah. Okay, so let me get two last ones. Chimuka, I know because this is your project, I'm sure you want to comment. And then the last hand there. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one. So I'll get three. Then you'll be the last one. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks so much, Bright, for that. I just wanted to make three comments. The first one is regards to what Madam Kateka has mentioned. When you look at the Register of Society as it is right now, it doesn't have a mandate to oversee the financial aspect of political parties. What it has is just to receive upon registration of a political party. So when it comes to issues of managing or the mandate to oversee how political parties source their monies and how they utilize the monies, the Register of Society doesn't have that mandate. And the more reason when you look at all the different political parties bill that have been suggested, that particular mandate is being thrown in these bills that are being proposed, so that the registrar can be given that that authority or even another independent institution. Then with respect to government funding, maybe we should also understand that when we talk of political party financing, it's not only money that we should be talking of. It goes beyond money. Even when, for example, political parties are about to import cars that they want to use for campaign in 2026, and government lifts up taxes so that they can import those vehicles for free, that is actually political party financing. So it goes beyond the aspects of money. So when we are discussing, let's not just look at the capacity of government to be able to fund political parties financially, but we can also extend and look at what are some of the activities or in-kind contribution that government can actually contribute towards political parties. And of course, in terms of criteria, it has already been mentioned. I won't belabor that fact. Then the last aspect I wanted to contribute are issues of donor confidentiality, like the other gentleman here from Citizen First has indicated. Of course, disclosure requires donor confidentiality. If, for example, me, I support a Citizen First, and as an individual, I do some donations and so forth and so on, I think it would be relevant for you to be able to publish whichever individual that supports you. So the most important aspect here is to look at the thresholds. What we are trying to learn away is the aspect of state capture here. So when you look at, for example, countries like Malawi, they have put a threshold, for For example, a political party that receives a 1 million Malawian kwacha, they have to declare where that money is coming from. So it's not everything that you are going to declare, but it's that transaction which is a bit suspicious or big enough that it can actually exert influence if you come into power. My submission.
Thank you very much. The hand there and then the last hand there. Just bear in mind that after the panel discussion, we'll open it up again for further discussion. So if you have a question and a comment, we can still do that after the panel discussion. Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. I think I've attended these meetings in several venues. Even the last time we were at Crystal Golf.
Yes.
Yeah. The issue here is passing the political party bill. The political party bill is the one which also contains the financing of political parties. And there is a draft which was actually drafted on the political party bill. The examples you are giving of these other SADC countries, like we attended another meeting at the Urban Hotel, where our friends from Tanzania, Malawi, and others, they were there. They were explaining that they have a political party bill, and they have passed it. That's where all this we are debating is contained. So my question for TIZ, ZCID, Action Aid, the other people who have been calling such meetings, is why can't you come together, draft the political party bill, we get the contentious issues out, where we are saying we don't want to disclose where the money is coming from. That was the position of the political parties, even when we met at Grestagov. So we remove the contentious issues and pass the political party bill. All these debates will be out. Thank you very much. That's my submission.
Okay. Interesting submission. I think Chimuka has a response to that already in terms of our work around the political parties bill. Maybe you can comment, Chimuka.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, the gentleman is actually familiar, like he has mentioned, to this work and advocates. We actually have on the table, in terms of the political parties bill that has been developed from the civil society's perspective, I think our advocacy is ongoing to try and ensure that we can have this particular bill into law, so that we can have regulations around political party and campaign financing, but also importantly to actualize Article 60 of the Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, the last hand there, gentleman there. This side. Yeah, that one. Yes, sir.
So, Brenda Philip is my name once again. I'm representing the movement for multi-party democracy. First of all, thank you so much, TIZ, for according us this platform to share thoughts on matters that are very, very important. For me, it's a privilege to be in this room of very bright people who are desiring nothing but the best for their country. I must mention that in a way, I find your report to be quite appalling. As someone who's representing a political party that champions politics of morality and integrity. I don't know for others, if we are talking about a better Zambia, if we are talking about securing a better Zambia for our children, then we need to have serious conversations around issues of transparency and promoting transparency at political party level. You did mention in your report that the transparency levels in political parties is very low. To me, that's quite appalling, because potentially these are political parties that form government. So they can't suddenly begin to promote transparency and accountability when they form government, whereas they didn't promote transparency and accountability at political party level. So mine is more of a commentary on the report that you have given, to say this is the time that we need to have serious conversations around enacting laws that compel political parties to make full disclosure of their funding, the source of funding, and the way they are spending their monies. Otherwise, we cannot have a better Zambia without promoting values of transparency and accountability. So there is need to promote, to have conversations, rather, to enact laws that promote accountability. But as we do that quickly, we also need to think about, because the prevailing political climate doesn't protect funders. Let's say company so and so is funding a political party in opposition, and they don't make it, they don't win an election. You find that their businesses will be clamped and so on and so forth. They are frustrated. So in the same way as we enact laws that compel political parties to make full disclosure, we also enact laws that protect funders. I think that would be my contribution, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very good contribution. So that is a comment. I was looking for comments, and I found one. So I'd like to end my session here. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. So, Mr. Moderator, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chizonde, for very interesting presentations. I think that has also opened up for a lot of conversation around this topic. At this point in time, we're moving to the panel discussion, which is going to be moderated by Mr. Charles Mafa from the Makande Center for Journalism. I'd like to invite him here, and he shall then invite his panelists. Mr. Mafa?
Thank you. So are we going to have Mr. Chizonde as well?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. On behalf of our hosts and partners, my name is Charles Mafa, as earlier introduced. I am the managing partner for Makande Center for Investigative Journalism. So in case you are coming across this name for the first time, we are actually a non-profit company limited by guarantee, and founded on charitable objectives with a mission to advance public interest journalism. And our goal basically is to strengthen investigative journalism. So that's a little background to the organization I'm coming from. So I would like to welcome you to this important discussion on transparency in political party financing and the risk of illicit financing in Zambia. Our democracy is not only about free and fair elections, it also depends on how political parties are funded. When money is hidden, the risks are high. Illicit funds, foreign influence, and corruption can distort democracy long before a single vote is cast. A recent study, as we heard earlier by TIZ, supported by BBC Media Action, found that most political parties in Zambia lack financial transparency. Many even accept anonymous or foreign donations. This raises tough questions. Who funds our political parties? What influence do they have? And how do we protect our democracy? So this morning, ladies and gentlemen, we bring together experts, political leaders, and civic voices to reflect on these findings and share solutions. The goal is clear: stronger transparency, accountability, and public trust. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to now introduce our panelists. And as I introduce them, I will also ask them to come and take a seat in front here. So on the panel, the first on the panel is Mr. Kauta Mwale, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the Party of National Unity and Progress, PNUP. Mr. Mwale, sir, you can come forward and take a seat. The second on the panel is Mr. Chanda Chinukwe, the Secretary General of New Heritage Party, NHP. Sir, you can come forward and take a seat. Then the third on the panel is Mr. Peter Mwanangombe, the Program Director from Christian Churches Monitoring Group, CCMG. Sir, you can come forward and we can clap for him. And last but not the least is Mr. Bright Chizonde, the lead researcher from TIZ. Mr. Chizonde, I know you have already made your presentation, but I'm sure there might be one or two questions directed at you. You can come forward and take a seat. We can clap for him. Thank you very much. So this is how the discussion will pan out. Because it's only 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do is that I will pose questions, one question for each of our panelists here. And then afterwards, I will open the discussion to all of us in the room. So if you have a question, you can simply raise your hand. And then when you are given an opportunity to ask or make a comment, you introduce yourself and tell us also the organization that you are representing. So as a way of starting, we heard earlier on that this study shows that 75% of Zambian political parties have very low transparency. What does this mean in practice for voters and democratic accountability? I think I'll pose this question to CCMG. Mr. Manangombe, if you can help us understand what risks does this pose to our democracy and also to our elections when that time comes for elections?
All right. Thank you very much. And I think congratulations to TIZ for this important study. It's a good start for us. But quickly, in the looking at the impact or the concerns that voters should have with regards issues of transparency as well as illicit financing, it's very simple, because you notice that there's a very clear relationship between those that have the most money in elections and the pattern of political violence, first of all, right? So those that have the money have the capacity then to sponsor electoral violence, which then undermines the credibility of an election. The second issue is that we have witnessed or we have heard about vote buying throughout by-elections that have been held in this country, at least in the last 3-4 years, right? And there lies a problem. The fact that there is too much money and people can then induce voters, buy votes, it means that citizens, voters may either stay away from voting, or then their choice may be impaired based on the fact that somebody has given them money and or has promised them money. So they'll make their decision not on their free will, but based on the influence that money has exerted on their decision. So really that then creates a challenge for the voters. But we also understand the fact that in the absence of what Bright alluded to from the report, which is to the effect that citizens have got no access to the money or to the finances for these political parties, then we clearly do not know, what we are getting ourselves into. And the biggest issue being institution and also state capture. So those are serious risks that then, because a citizen does not understand this, they bear the cost. For example, if a political party has been funded by an organization that is in mining or whatever, it means that certain policies might not be implemented to the full benefit of the citizen, rather to the benefit of the particular company or individuals. You look at issues of health, for example, and education. So you end up having weaker policies that then affect the citizens more. You end up having tax policies, tax regimes that squeeze the ordinary citizen, whilst those in business are not paying what they are supposed to pay. So in short, the effect of money in politics and the illicit financing affects more the citizen, because our taxes are going to increase. You pay more in terms of pay as you earn. You still pay your 16% on tax. Anything that you do is going to be taxed. So when you really compound the taxes that an ordinary citizen will be able to pay, you find that they're actually paying more than what the businesses are paying, right? So that is the effect of money
Thank
on
you.
the voter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manangombe, I think, for laying the foundations. So I'll throw this to PNUP. Does money really matter or influence the way politics is done?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have an ideal situation. You have this ideal perception where people actually believe that the money that you push in is actually what makes the people behave in the manner in which they behave in. But when you bridge the gap between what is the perception and the reality on the ground, is that you see, in fact, when we're trying to change this, we need a paradigm shift first and foremost to the actual electorates. Because you, as somebody who has been in the political campaign field on several occasions, you'll find that there's a particular expectation that the electorate already have. So when you just enter a political meeting, a rally, everybody who has come there, okay, there is a premium that they have placed on you. The moment you come and give them your perfect manifesto, you'll be able to explain what you can do, how you're going to do it perfectly. And you find that if that was being listened to by intellectuals, they'll give you probably a 9 out of 10. But if after that meeting, immediately that meeting is done with, and you get up and leave, believing that, look, our manifesto is superior, the reaction you get on the ground is that, look, if you want to be in politics and without money, why are you doing it after all? You understand? So you need to understand that it is not the politicians that actually wants to go and corrupt the minds of the voters, but there is an inertia from the voters to say, look, for us to even give you our time, you need to at least, it's a sort of like political per diem. So, and, but ultimately you find that when you're outside looking in, it looks like when I go in and then the money that I push through is what is going to influence the electorate. Half the time their minds are already made up. Okay, so that is basically part of an advertisement that I come to present myself. I'm one of the candidates, and then for them to even pay attention to remember my name tomorrow, okay, there must be that kind of token that is given. So I think I'd love to just rebuttal those assertions to say that it's actually the reverse. It is not where, even when you're talking about the political violence, believe it or not, I have actually been one of the advocates from way back that I've been saying we need to get rid of cadarism in the markets and the bus stations. Those guys are the same people that were there in UNIT, MMD, PF, and every subsequent regime they are there. All they do is they have a mechanism of how they siphon money from what's supposed to go into public coffers. So all they do is once there's regime change, they align themselves with the party that comes in power so that they can continue with the shenanigans. You get the point?
Yeah, I get a feeling, I think, from you, Mr. Mwale, and I don't know, before I get to the New Heritage Party, that there's this kind of, giving up kind of, scenario where you think there's nothing that needs to be done about this situation. Because I think from the research, what is coming out is that actually, if there's transparency in the way the money comes in, then there will also be transparency in the way it is used, whether it is giving out handouts that you are talking about to the voters. Do you agree with this?
I'm not averse to the issue of transparency. Actually, it is a very good thing. Though I've got reservations also to the extent to which you could be audited and by which entity. Because also you find that if you're going to entrust that with the Registrar of Societies, there is a likelihood of it being weaponized by the governing regime. Okay, because we have seen in a number of instances where they can use that to say clamp down on you in the event that you're saying something that is not favorable. So those are dynamics that we need to discuss also.
Okay, thank you very much. I think those were just opening remarks. So I'll move to the New Heritage Party. Sir, Mr. Chinukwe, the Secretary Secretary General for the New Heritage Party, would like to hear from you. I think Zambia's constitution, Article 60, provides for political finance regulation, yet no law has been enacted. What are the key barriers preventing this from happening? From your point of view as a political party.
Maybe, sorry, before I come to that, maybe let me take you back a little bit. Why, for instance, are we discussing political party funding? I think we are discussing this because we want to level the playing fields, I believe. We want to level the playing fields so that we enhance our democratic credentials, correct? Now, politics is a very expensive game. You might not be aware that for you to run a reasonable political campaign, you need in the region of about $25 million. $25 million for you to run a reasonable political campaign. So democracy is not cheap. It's expensive. So having said that, if you're going to level the playing fields in terms of funding for political parties, let me take the present scenario like so that we speak to the reality here in Zambia. Take the ruling UPND. When they were in the opposition, they were funded by we don't know who. Now they are the ruling party. They would like us in the opposition to disclose our funders. Firstly, the person funding is not going to be, is willing to be publicized as having funded you for various reasons. Secondly, as a beggar, you can't be cherry picking. I can't decide, well, because you don't want to be disclosed, I'm going to get money from this person. Money is in short supply. So that is, I think, laying the basis for what is obtaining. You may wish to know that currently, I don't know how many people are aware. If you just go to do annual returns at the Resource Society, the police have to come in. Did you know that? I'm currently doing my annual returns.
You have to tell us.
I'm telling you, I'm currently doing my annual returns. It's taken me 3 months because first I have to take my members to the police, fingerprints. I have to take my CV and my members. Police, you give them your CV. That's interviewing us. So it is a bit unfair that one of the key players is the one pulling the shots. You are somebody alluded to the aspect of declaring the presidential declaration of what? Assets and liabilities.
Assets, yes.
Have we heard that? We don't know. So if they cannot declare, why should they ask others to declare?
Are those the reasons that are preventing this law from being enacted? I want to hear it from you as a political player in Zambia's democracy.
We can only enact if all of us as the key stakeholders come together and discuss this issue and see what will be workable for all of us in fairness to all of us, and not the ruling party prescribing what should happen to the others, because they are an interested party. So they cannot be both referee and judge.
Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. Mr. Kizonde, we heard from the two political parties here, and one of the things being mentioned here is that democracy is not cheap, and that also it's a complicated game to be in politics. If I may ask, from your findings, what really do you want to see, happening in Zambia's democracy with regards to financing of political parties?
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe let me start with just a comment on what was said by, I think, one of the stakeholders here around the demand-driven cost of politics. That is that citizens are pushing the cost. Yes, it is true that partly citizens also have a demand, But I think it's important to see the underlying factors, why that has come out to be the case. I see it that politicians come and make a lot of promises to citizens when they are running for elections. They declare a lot of things that they are going to do for the citizens, tell them all the good stories. And so take this story, you have this candidate who tells you they'll bring all these things, they'll develop this area, they'll bring this market, they'll bring this health facility. And once they get your vote, they are gone. Years pass, they don't come back. When they are back, it's election period again. So I think the structure of unfulfilled political promises is what induces the citizens to say, let me also just benefit from you then. As you are campaigning, because all you want is my vote, you are not going to give me any other thing. Let me also just benefit from your money. Let me stress you, give me the money as you are campaigning, as I vote for you. So essentially you create an accountability structure which only happens once when you are campaigning. So I think politicians also need to think through about their promises so that the issue just doesn't remain on just getting, distributing money and what for you to win an election. There should be a process and a system of accountability to the extent that when you promise as a political party or a candidate, you are going to hold up to your promises such that the people will believe you on the basis of what you are saying. So integrity goes beyond just money, integrity in terms of political parties. And as Transparency International Zambia, I think those are key issues beyond just the issue of political party financing, but generally to make sure that stakeholders in the political space uphold integrity. If you're aware, we just did a review of the UPND's promises after 4 years in power. And, overall performance is low performance, right? They haven't done very well, even compared to the previous assessment we did when they were 2 years in office. So it's a call again to stakeholders in the political space that don't, let the voters only have one accountability check, and that is to demand money from you. That is not sustainable for our democracy. In terms of the key recommendation, I'll just highlight one more. Of course, we have talked about the law that is missing, but I think I want to emphasize more on the issues around what political parties should be doing. I think simple things, I would say simple things, having a commercial bank account as where you do your transactions. I think that is not very complicated. It's easy to open a bank account. I think it's easy. Is it not so, Mr. Peter? It is easy to open a bank account. Companies do that. Even consultants, individual consultants, companies can do that. So a society, a political party should not find it very difficult to have a bank account where they operate. That is a minimum in terms of the starting point, because you can't have a situation where you just operate in cash. You would be what we call an informal political party, operating in the informal economy, right? Because you just operate on cash. I think we need to do that. And then secondly, financial manual, procedures or policies in terms of how monies are supposed to be managed in the political party. That's another key recommendation we're making, that it should be well documented in terms of what processes are being followed to access funds that are in your bank account. Who is the signatory? How are they going to receive that money? Who signs for that money to come out? All those procedures need to be very clear. It shouldn't be a one-man show in a political party where someone is the ultimate owner of all the resources in the political party. I will just give a note of our reflection when we are doing another study during the 2021 general elections. We were asking questions trying to estimate how much political parties are spending on different items. And we tried to get how much political parties are spending on advertisement through TV and radio. Do you know what we discovered? When we approached some of the media houses, we are told that only the head of the media house has that information. So even the people themselves don't know how much this particular political party has paid for them to be on this particular radio or TV station. So there's so much that is closed up, which is not even necessary. So I think we need to be, more transparent as political parties.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chizonde. I think having listened to all our panel members here, I would like to open this now to the members in this room. Do we agree with what has been raised here? or we have a different view. I think from political parties' point of view, they are saying, look, the voters themselves are the ones who entice us to behave the way we behave. But I don't know whether this also extends to, for example, having a bank account as a political party and having procedures, clear procedures that members should know. Is this what people in this room agree with or have a different opinion on this and many other issues that have been raised here? I saw a hand there. So I think we can start with the gentleman there. Then from there, we can go to Chimuka from TIZ. And then we can go to Madam Shalakateka. Then after these three contributions, and after they respond, then we can get another set of questions and contributions. Yes, sir, you can proceed.
Thank you so much. Ngulube from NAREP. It's indeed a very important discussion that we're having here, that corruption and unregulated political financing have got the potential to damage our democracy. It is therefore, we are looking at the issues of the financing. Now, why is it that political parties, we look so much into looking for huge sums of money? For what? That is the question we need to be asking ourselves. Number one, we have got a culture. It's to do with the culture, moral, and of course, the traditional aspect of it. That whenever I walk into my ward in Ilumezi, where we have a councillor, just because Ngulube President Vanarep is here, I want to just leave with a message. They will tell me, you understand? That's the issue. So the people themselves, number one, we have commercialized the political aspect of it in Zambia. Politics in Zambia have been commercialized. Politics in Zambia have been commercialized. Number one, if you want to contest as a president, how much does it cost just for a fee at ECZ? If you want to contest as a councillor, how much does it cost? And moreover, we have also added now all these issues of work. You need to have a certain level of education. All that, it requires money. And at the end of it all, we find that this aspect of where politics have been commercialized, it has a very negative trickle-down effect, including to our voters. I stood as a councillor at some point, just because I couldn't give somebody a t-shirt, they couldn't vote for me despite having a better message. So it's no longer about the message. It's no longer about the whatever. It's about he who has the house.
Okay.
This is the aspect that we are in. And in order for us to come out of this, I would submit, it is supposed to start with ourselves. Let us unite and make sure that we compile the powers that may be to ensure that we begin to regulate ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngulube from NAREP. I think next is Chimuka.
Thank you, moderator. I have a comment and a question to the political parties. Let me start with a comment. I want to have a different view with what PNUP has advanced in terms of the behavior of the electorate on the ground. Basically, I think this is the law of supply and demand. So when there is supply and on the other side you have demand, and if the electorates are demanding and you are able to supply, it means that the problem is the political parties, because the voters now have seen that political parties are Father Christmas. They can actually give money, and then the behavior continues. It is actually true that when you go on the ground right now, the voters won't even look at your manifesto. They will just look at your pocket. Can you dip deeper in your pocket? If you cannot, forget about 2026, which is very, very unfortunate. And like the gentleman has put it, the starting point is ourselves as political parties. We created this problem and we need to solve this problem. Let us all behave in the same manner. Not that, oh, PND, they have got more money, these ones, and so forth and so on. We are actually distorting our democracy, because at one point we'll end up sending criminals to parliament and our policies will actually be distorted. My question is to the two political parties there. Imagine in 2026, you won the elections and you formed government. Would you support political party financing disclosure in Zambia? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there was a hand here from the president of the New Heritage Party. If you can pass the mic to her.
Thank you so much. This issue that we are discussing is not a straightforward issue. It's quite complicated and probably answers the reason why we have a bottleneck in terms of enacting the law. It's very true. Our politics has been commercialized, and this has been something that has been happening gradually and becoming worse as we progress. When somebody said that the more money that we have, the more money that a political party has, they have the capacity to sponsor violence, is actually not incorrect. It is correct. You see, the reason why we have, sorry, I'm digressing just a little bit. The reason why we have cadres is not about political ideology. It's about the money. It's all about the money. That fighting we see at City Market between the cadres, they'll even kill each other, is because they feel it's their turn to eat. You know, so now it's our turn to eat, and they will fight to the death because it's all about the money. Now, when we talk about self-regulation as political parties, we need to understand politicians. We need to understand mankind, especially when they become politicians, because it's all about getting into government. You see what I mean? It depends on the reason, my motive for standing as president or whatever it is that I'm standing as. And people will go to great lengths to make sure that they get in. They'll do everything. So if we think that the political parties will self-regulate, we better think again. I've seen the way we behave as politicians. And if I have money, I'll use it. If somebody has money, they will use it to disadvantage other people. So this is something, the regulation will not come from the political parties, I can assure you. The regulation will need to come from elsewhere. Now, we are operating in a very toxic environment. And right now, we have players similar to us who are in government, and this has been the case with all successive governments. They would always tend to disadvantage those in opposition, because in politics, the way we do politics now, it's a zero-sum game. The winner takes all. And then that winner makes sure that all of these are disadvantaged so that I can stay in power. And they will do everything to make sure that they suppress whatever it is. So the bank account, yes, it's the final
so that
thing.
we
Let
can
me just
allow more people to.
Yes, just the final thing. The thing is, opening a bank account is not an issue. We have a bank account, but we don't use it as much as we possibly could, simply because somebody has got that capacity to go and look into your bank account, and they could even close it if they so wish.
So where do you keep your money?
Under my pillow.
Okay, thank you very much. I think now it's time for our panelists to respond. I think there was a question directed to political parties here. I think that question was, are you ready to support this law that requires you to be supported financially by the state as political parties? I think that question came from TIZ there.
Thank you very much. I think I would love to first and foremost just react to the first comment he made before I answer the question. When you say that we have the capacity, the buck stops with us. The moment we stop bending to the demands of the electorate, ideally, we should nip this in the bud. It should go away. However, remember that at the same time that you're dealing with the electorate, you're also dealing with another political party that may not play under the same rules. Okay, it's like when you're driving in the morning, there's congestion. You want to stick to your lane, but then there are these guys that keep, get busy, and you are late, and you think, look, if that guy is doing that, I might as well do the same so I get where I'm going on time. So the problem is, I believe 80% of political parties are actually willing to say, look, let's stop with this giving of the money to the electorate. But then imagine this. Here's the New Heritage Party. We are contesting the same parliamentary election. I tell the electorate I can't do this because it is not good. It's not standard. Okay, for all purposes and intents, it's against the electoral code of conduct. You get the point. But the moment I do that, and then he's donating monies at 0-1 and all those things, who's winning? So ideally, first and foremost, remember that it's a competition to save. I would love to save. Okay, so when ideally it looks easy to say we can stop with these issues, but then not everybody is playing under the same rules. So that's just a reaction to that. Then the question, if we were to form government today,
yes,
would we want to enact such a law? The law is good. Okay, and I'll put it to you that this law is good because then it can bring some sanity.
I think maybe if you can start from will you enact this law
let me
then
answer it
get to
let me answer it the way I'm comfortable. Let me answer it the way I'm comfortable. The law is actually a very good one. You get the point. In so much, it can bring sanity to the political space. And PNUP, like I think every other political party, would love to enact that. Now, the problem is we are seated here and we are thinking, okay, based on certain things that have happened under certain public offices, are we comfortable to give them the mandate to be able to oversee this? Okay, I think it's the levels of trust that we have now. So if we can have, let's say a different political party forms government, and then from their conduct, you can see that they have placed the rule of law as a premium. Even when they push, say, okay, let's do constitutional reforms, you won't find a lot of kickback, a pushback from the public. You won't find.
I think, Mr. Mwale, the question is very
I've answered
clear.
it. I've said yes, we would love to. And the issue is
NUP
yes, I've
formed
answered it.
government.
I've answered it.
Are you
And I've
able
told
to pass this law?
Here's the thing. I've answered that question. I said yes, we'll be more than willing to do it. But I've also given a disclaimer because when I just say yes and end there, then the question will be, but then why are you uncomfortable now? You understand? So I also have to give it a little bit of some, resource to say why I think there's some reluctance, okay, for political parties to actually go along with these amendments or enactments. You get the point. But ideally, it's a good law, and PNUPS would be willing to enact it.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chinukwe, what would you tell us? Are you going to enact this law in case New Heritage Party forms government next year?
Definitely. As Democrats, we would like to enact this law.
You will enact it?
Yes, but that depends also on the fact that it must be a level playing field. Okay? We don't just start enacting, like my colleague was saying, where others are going to have an advantage. No. I mean, we must come together and do agree. If we enact this law, what will be the do's and don'ts? So it has to apply to everybody fairly. That way we can enact it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think there was a question or a comment around if we think that this is going to be done by political parties, then we should forget. Maybe that's where I would ask Mr. Manangombe to just make a comment that what needs to be done, I think, on the part of citizens for this to work. Because for political parties, all of them seem not to be sure, and they seem to be blaming it on the other political parties. But I think the question was simple, to say, if you formed government, How are you able to enact this law? And if you are able to enact, then you need to tell us how you will enact it and to ensure that you do not behave the same way the ruling parties behave. I think that needs to be quite clear. But in the case of, if we think that this will happen naturally, leaving it to political parties are saying this can't happen. As CCMG, what is your view on that?
Right. So, yeah, I mean, just sitting here and listening to how political parties put butts to the question, you know, even if it's genuine, that then you have to look at the environment and read further. For me, makes me feel there's a lot that we need to do, and I think we really need to go back and think about, is this really a citizen issue? But when you look at even the global framework around corruption, it really is insufficient in as far as it addresses political party financing and bridging those gaps. So there is a lot that we need to start from in terms of looking at the global standards, your UNCAC, for example. What does it provide specifically to deal with issue of political party expenditure, funding, and disclosure? It is very interesting that an institution that wants to form government does not want to do transactions the way that ordinarily should be, transactions should be done. And I think then it is beyond a citizen, really. It is beyond a voter to do this, but really political parties that are within this room and outside should then take a serious introspection and think about what they want to do. I have scanned around to see how many political parties have a website in this country that is able to capture, for example, membership, because one of the ways that political parties should fundraise is through the membership. And when you find that the highest in this country is through party leadership, that's why you have founder syndromes within political parties. That's why you don't have succession that is democratically defined. So we have a problem in that I'm yet to find a political party that has a website that defines how membership should be done. That is very important. That a website that defines how donations should be done. That is very important, because that is a tool that you are going to use to be able to capture your membership, and your resource is your membership. So if your resource base is your membership, how then do you want to pay your membership? You will not be worried about spending so much money convincing people. Rather, because this is your resource base, they will be financing you as political parties then to do business. But we do not live in an ideal world. And that is why somebody is saying that if they are doing it and I'm doing the right thing, then let me join them. That we cannot do. You cannot justify doing a wrong because another person is doing it. And that is where we need to have more serious interactions between the political party and the citizen away from money. But there are bigger challenges to that. We have a Public Order Act that limits the extent to which we can interact. Those are things that we need to address. Therefore, finance laws or public political party financing alone does not deal with the problem, but we need to go further, strengthen institutions of governance, ensure that political parties are able to organize and move and resource mobilize through different ways. Then we are going to see that this particular framework works. But in the absence of that, then we have bigger players that are going to take advantage of the platform. And really, citizens are at the very tail end. And to be honest, political parties have themselves caused this problem, and we need to have political parties drive citizens out of this problem.
Mr. Manangombe, thank you very much. I think Mr. Chizonde will, before I can give the audience an opportunity again to ask and make comments, with 75% of parties accepting foreign donations, as highlighted in your report, how vulnerable is Zambia's political system to external interference? Because we may be discussing something that is beyond us. Because if the funder is out there, then the voter just ends up at casting his vote.
Well, that is very true. 75% of political parties lack transparency, and they also accept foreign donations from foreign interests. As we are saying, this is a very huge risk, and if you're not seeing it, I don't know how we can say it better for you to see this risk. Essentially, it means that you can have your government completely captured. What the voters want, and this is the reason why sometimes voters will complain, wondering, they wanted something to happen and it's not happening. All this, wow, this thing that they have been pushing for is not happening. This is the reason, because if you allow foreign interests to come and fund your political parties, there is a very high risk that you need to, that you're going to end up facing. And so maybe let me end by maybe saying that, just a warning to political parties that have made a habit of donations, or sorry, not donations, habit of paying people, giving money, distributing, it's the correct word, distributing money to electorates. If you are aware, in terms of, if you think of it as a business, the number one reason why businesses fail after success is because they have failed to realize that the customer has changed. Over time, the customers change. The definition of which customer you're dealing with changes with market trends. So if you think about it as a political party, I'm foreseeing that some political parties are going to remain behind because the voter changes. So in your thinking of a rural voter or a poor voter, thinking that you can just give money and you get the vote, project this 10, 15 years from now, you have more educated urban voters, more informed people because of social media and access to information. The voter will change, whilst you are still just donating money or distributing money to voters.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kizonde. I think looking at time, we can have the last round of questions and comments. So we can start from there, and then we'll come here, and then we'll go to the back there. So let's pass the mic there. Just show her by raising your hand so that she can know where you are. So let's make sure that if it's a comment, we keep them brief. If it's a question, we just go direct to the question, and the one question per person, so that we can have as many people saying something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning. My apologies, I stepped in late. I'm representing the Patriotic Front. My name is Gabriel Kibombwe. I'm a member of the Central Committee. I just wanted to address, I think, a few things from a realistic perspective regarding the issue of transparency and declaration of financial support for political parties. I think the biggest issue that we need to address for us to be successful is to be prepared. For a policy or a law to be enacted and work effectively, it needs to find us prepared, because we do have an opportunity now to enact it, but are we prepared for it? And I love the fact that within the panel you speak of the institutions. And in this case, we're not talking about institutions, we're not talking about organizations, not anti-corruption, not parliament. Those are just organs. We're talking about institutions in terms of the rules of the game. What rules govern the government of Zambia or the ruling party? What rules govern the opposition party? If those rules are not strengthened, then you cannot succeed in terms of the transparency and the accountability that we're looking for. I want to give a practical example from the Patriotic Front perspective. We do have a bank account with clear separation of roles amongst who manages the account, okay? But one day, only one day, we woke up and suddenly the party was put in a closet and hijacked with the support of state machinery. It's not a secret. So you reach a point where all our operations at that time were crumbled. And you may all recall that the UPND government, when it stepped in, it literally petitioned all the seats parliamentary seats, mayoral seats, and that is a huge, huge cost, legal, campaign-wise, and otherwise. And based on that, we were suddenly paralyzed. So how then, how prepared are we that the political parties, in their spirit of transparency, are going to be protected?
Okay, so what's the question, Mr. Kibombwe? As
No, I'm just sharing the realistic
Yes,
perspective
I
so
think-
that we don't live in cloud nine.
Yeah, I think it's been heard. So we want to hear if it's a question or
You see, sir, I'm speaking from a perspective of a party that was ruling for 10 years. I think you also want to be,
which had an opportunity to put
you
things.
want to be realistic in terms of a time frame that you allow us to speak.
Yes, yes.
It is to the benefit of all of us.
Yeah,
okay?
but we can't
It is
be
to the
here the whole
benefit.
day. So
Okay, if you want
we
to
have
be the one to speak, then thank you for the invitation.
No,
We
no.
can
I'm
go ahead
saying
and
if you can put your point across and then so that we can give others an opportunity.
Okay.
You are on the floor.
All right, because the time we spent engaging, I would have concluded. Okay, so secondly, we're looking at political parties in our current dispensation. It's different. I mean, look at the people that provide support to the parties. Even people that are not affiliated to a party right now, they cannot get business under the UPND government, just like they couldn't get business under the PF if they supported MMD. How would that transparency going to work out? When parties try to invest, the PF tried to build its own head office with office space and generate income. The first thing that the UPND went for was for our properties. Our vehicles have been confiscated. So basically, I'm challenging you.
Is that the last contribution?
Yeah, so the
from
conclusion I'm
PF?
challenging you is to say, as we speak of this good law,
Yes.
let us be realistic about how have we strengthened the institutions so that we safeguard these political parties when they begin to declare the investments. I think it's only unique
Okay,
in this
thank you,
country which
thank
has
you.
got the infrastructure.
Thank
and
you
nobody
very
is
much,
repossessing.
Mr. Kibombo. I think your point is noted. So we can take the mic here. So that was just a contribution. I think there was no question. Yes, sir. So you can introduce yourself and please briefly ask a question or make a contribution.
Yes, thank you. My name is Lombeka Sanda. I'm coming from the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection. I'll make three brief statements in relation to the government, the current government, and whether or not they're willing to enact this law. I think there's an idea that they want to use this as a stick to beat the smaller political parties, but I think they recognize it as being a double-edged sword, and they wouldn't want to enact this. They've got a majority in parliament, and if they really wanted, they could have pushed this law through. They've already shown that they are not unwilling to push through legislation that is unpopular. Look at the Cyber Law Act, for example. So why hasn't this one been pushed through as well, if they want to use it as a stick to beat the political parties? I think they as well don't want people in their books as well, and this is to keep things as opaque as possible. So I think there's multiple party support for not enacting this law. And then when you go to the law itself, as it sits in Article 60, there are issues, for example, where people are saying that if they remove contentious issues like disclosure of funds, that's in the law itself. That's in Article 60. So we're talking about constitutional change because it says that they shall enact or they shall prescribe this law. So we need to look at that as well. We can't just pick and choose which parts of the Constitution we want to obey. We have to take everything as it stands. When I look at the limits on spending, for example, I think this would be an equitable measure, for example. The limiting on the amount of spending during campaigns, that's in Article 60 as well. So if we enacted that, it will create a more equitable playing field for women, persons with disabilities, and the youth as well.
Okay.
And when I also look at, for example, who should receive this funding, Article 60 also provides for that as well. It is supposed to be meant for political parties with MPs in the House as well. And then when I look at, for example, when you say, no, we have to give inducements in order to get votes, essentially. I think those inducements should be seen from people who are demanding them as a cry for help. These are people who want to be clothed, people who want to be fed as well. So when you go there giving meal, giving money out, you're giving it to vulnerable people. You're exploiting vulnerabilities. So we really need to look at the dignity of the human being
Okay,
who we're
thank you.
exploiting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kasonda, for that contribution. I think there was a hand there. So I think also that was just a reminder that as political parties, we have no excuse because the Supreme Law basically provides for that, and that we need to do the correct thing. Excuses, I think, will not take us anywhere. Yes, sir.
Oh, once more, I'm Mbale Suzio. I'm the spokesperson for the EFF. What is really on the ground and what we are debating, they are very separate. In politics, as we are in politics, it's like you are playing football. So there is kicking, dribbling until you score.
And there are spectators, like
yes,
the
spectators
voters.
will be shouting. They have their own roles. We don't even mind them. So the president said something there. Me personally, I have an ambition. With my team, we have a dream. So how we go there depends on liquidity, power. That's money. The money we need is not to give people direct. They are also indirect. We need the money for the media. We need to plan. We need to move. Okay? From here, you know, Zambia is very
So
wide.
you don't want this money to come from a clean source?
No, that water doesn't stop a tree from growing.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, let me continue.
Conclude on your
So,
on
you
your point.
people,
Yes.
you want to mix Christianity and politics. We are in Christianity.
So what are you telling us now?
No, we are talking about the money, the issue of money here.
You're talking
and
about the issue of money,
politics.
yes. So what's
where
what's
democracy comes from?
What's EFF's point on this issue of transparency? Yes.
Point is, let's stop discussing about telling people where our money is coming from, how we want to spend it, limiting how much we should spend, because others will buy helicopters for these campaigns. Others will be using the road. So how do you limit people to campaign? The whole idea is we want to form government.
So so as EFF, you're saying this is not something that should be entertained, if I'm getting you clearly.
On spot, we don't entertain it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think those were just comments. So we can add 2 more in case there are questions and other contributions away from what has been spoken, because I think also if we are not careful, we'll just be repeating the same things. So let's bring different ideas and also provide solutions, because now we are going towards the end of this discussion. So what is the solution? How do we move forward in order for this to work? Yes, madam.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Gift Nyambe from Transparency International Zambia. I want to speak as a youth, woman, and a citizen of this nation. And my comment has to do with one of the findings on transparency in political parties. And the comment, that part which I'm commenting on reads, we also established that the average years of existence of political parties with moderate transparency was less than 9 years, as compared to 10 years for political parties with low transparency and 12 years for political parties with very low transparency, suggesting that older political parties have lower transparency levels compared to those that are younger. So when I read this statement, it brings in fear, especially to the younger politicians or younger political parties, who in most cases are the youths and, the youths mainly. So this statement brings in issues of competitiveness. So the question is, does it mean that those that will gain power are those that have lasted for longer years? And also, what I'm reading from this statement is that once you are in power, or once you have formed a political party for more than 12 years, you have access to big cash coming in. And because of that big cash coming in, you fail to then disclose who is giving you the sources of money. And this also entails that money, or maybe those that are funding political parties, are only targeting those political parties that have lasted longer and that have seemingly have access to so many community members. So issues of competitiveness between political parties that have lasted longer and those that have shorter lifespan come in, and that widens the issues of, that widens inequality.
Okay.
Apart from that, it also speaks to a light capture. We have seen from how America is being, captured by these guys who are financing them, maybe Elon Musk to be precise. And what does that mean to Zambia, who is still young in its democracy? I heard one of the political parties saying that voters are pushing them towards, corrupting them. But when you look at what is happening in internal politics among political parties, I think we the politicians, or the politicians are the ones that are forcing the voters to request for money.
Thank
because
you.
it starts within
Thank
themselves.
you very much. So I think that was also a comment. I saw a hand from the New Heritage Party president. I'll allow that, and then afterwards, I will ask my panelists here to give their concluding remarks, which will be guided by a question, and also just to provide the way forward. What is the solution to this issue that we are talking about? Yes, Madam, if you can put your point briefly, and so that we can move to
very quickly.
Yes, Madam.
I still want to reiterate the fact that it's a very complicated situation. I heard one of the panelists talking about membership and getting money from membership. Once upon a time, that was the case. Parties would get money from their members. In this day and age, things have changed, and it doesn't happen like that, which is why this issue is now more complicated, because members now expect to eat from the party and not vice versa. Also, membership in our that is the reality. So I just wanted to stress what my colleague from PF was saying, that you need to take what's on the ground, and that is reality, and that is what is informing this situation. The commercialization, the toxic culture, all of those come to bear on what is happening in the political landscape. Finally, very finally, each political party has got its culture, okay? Work culture, integrity culture, and so it depends on why. Remember, I was talking about motive. Why did we form, for example, Heritage Party? I'm not going to go into that, but we've made certain decisions that we will operate like this, with integrity, with whatever, because we want to change the way things are done. But that's not the case, as you heard from EFF.
Thank you very much, Madam, and to everyone who made the contribution. So as we draw close to the end of this discussion, I will ask my panel members here to make their concluding remarks. But as I said, I will be asking questions. Mr. Manangombe, in your concluding remarks, how can citizens be better informed and empowered to demand transparency from political parties that are here? And from what I'm getting, political parties are resisting transparency.
Well, I think for me, it's to understand why is membership of political parties today fluid? And once you understand why political party membership is fluid, then you will know how to engage your voters. I still believe that the membership is relevant and is important to the sustainability of a political party. And that is the only way that we can go into there. And I think for citizens, it's about then thinking about what happens with our vote. Should money really influence the way that we vote, right? What is it that we believe in? Because when you look at the law itself, it actually speaks to the person who's corrupting the other and the one that is being corrupted, both being what? Offending the law, as it were. So we need to then begin to think about that. But I think what I pick from all this is an issue of enhancing civic education, strengthening institutions of governance, strengthening our own political parties. Political parties today should be formally registered as institutions of governance and deserve the respect that, be given the respect that they deserve. They should be subject of victimization where it matters, and there should be institutions that are able to support them and things like that. So we need to move away from this clamping of political parties together with other societies so that we really place a high premium on these institutions. These are governments in waiting, and therefore they deserve to be placed at a certain level. And that will help to change the behavior of political parties, because there will be no excuse in as far as adhering to issues of compliance with the provisions of the law, and that there will be no other political party that will be bigger than the other in terms of where the law is concerned.
Okay.
And that is where we also need to focus our advocacy to ensure that we enact laws then that respect and recognize political parties for what they are.
Thank you very much. I think you can give me the mic. So I think, Mr. Chinukwe, this one is going to you as you conclude. So the study calls for clean money principles. As the New Heritage Party, are you in support of this as you conclude?
Definitely. I think we are all aware of the dangers of illicit money. In the world we live in today, we have terrorists and so on. So it can't be a few days where we allow dirty money, so to speak. We don't even have to go very far. Look at the UPND. Look at their policies.
Well, maybe the UPND, we may spare them a bit now because they are not here. We know they are a government, but as we conclude, and they are not in the room.
Yeah, but they're in government, and they are, whatever they are doing is affecting us. So they're a key example. They were funded by certain people, and that's why their policies are tailored to that. That's the example I'm trying to.
That's the example you're giving.
Yes.
But they are not here to tell us who funded them.
Here.
Yes.
So, coming to the way forward,
yes.
I think just to add on to what he said, I think we need to strengthen the institutions of governance.
Okay.
And that must also go hand in hand with reducing the excessive powers of the presidency in this country.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that it can only be done by a party that is genuine and truly committed to the patriotic needs of this country. Okay. And that party is the New Heritage Party. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Mwale, PNUP. I think the point here from the New Heritage Party is that we need to strengthen institutions of governance. So the Registrar of Societies currently requires annual returns, but not detailed financial reports. Should its mandate be expanded, and does it have the capacity to play this role if it was to be given that extra responsibility of also accepting detailed financial reports?
I think, yes, an institution has to be mandated with that particular responsibility. It could be the Registrar of Societies, or we can create altogether a different body corporate. Colleagues, as we have sat here, I think I've seen the reaction to our contribution from the civil society sphere. You seem to take our apprehension and our contribution as though we are against the enactment of this law. I think our sentiments should be able to inform your advocacy, because we want the same thing. Okay, we would love to mitigate illicit funds coming into campaigns so that we don't have state or policy capture. I think that is something that we've all agreed on. What we have are certain fears, or we are apprehensive in certain areas. And I think those are kinks that we simply need to iron out. So instead of looking at us as people who don't want to be transparent and advocating for illicit funds, it is important that you see we are agreeing with this, but then we have got certain issues because we are the political players. We are the people that go on the ground and we see these things. That report that was stated, don't you realize that when we form political parties, we put all these modalities in place because we believe that is the way to go. Ultimately, some people begin to veer from that because the political landscape itself is vicious like that.
Okay, so what's the way forward?
So the way forward, I think we have had other discussions around this and talk. where political parties have also contributed to say, instead of having regulation of political parties under the Registrar of Societies, let us create something that is just specific for political parties, and then we ensure that there are safeguards against executive overreach in that institution.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Last but not the least, Mr. Chizonde, what would be an ideal political finance regulation law for Zambia look like if we were to have such a law, and what key provisions must it include as you make your concluding remarks and the brief?
Okay, not a very easy question. Listening, I think, from the stakeholders, you get the sense that there are a lot of fears. And I think the fears are well-founded, looking at what has been happening in the political space. So I think in terms of context, all of these principles that are happening, of course, these we are talking about global level standards. We are also talking about different country contexts, what other countries have done. The starting point would be to make sure, first of all, as I think other stakeholders and the political parties have said, let's fully understand the context in our country. Let's know what we are dealing with, because we can't really impose directly in terms of the international standards and principles directly to a country context. So we need to fully understand, and at TIZ we are contributing to this process to get information, evidence on what is the status. This study just gives overview in terms of this is what is happening, and I think beyond that, the voices of a political party here, you can hear, that gives you as a researcher, I would say the qualitative side of the story. Why they don't have the bank accounts, why they don't keep that money, why they are not willing to disclose, why there's limited transparency, why they accept donations from any source. So their voices give you the other side. And for me, I think it's actually validating what we got in the survey, because we are able to see that, okay, there are real fears. So for us to have that law, of course, key elements which are non-negotiable, there should be an element of transparency. It may not be absolute transparency, as we said. It may be some degree of transparency. And in terms of disclosure, there may be limits where the person who is funding a political party should know that if they are giving to a certain limit, then they'll be made public. Because what is the reason why they want to put in 10 million kwacha in a political party's campaign? There must be a reason. So if they are willing to do that, and they believe their ideology to that extent, they should be willing to get themselves known in the public. So I think those are the key elements that need to be there in the particular law.
Thank you very much. I think to everyone who made the contribution to this discussion, and also to my able panel here of Mr. Kauta Mwale from the Deputy Secretary General of PNUP, Mr. Chanda Chinukwe, thank you very much, the Secretary General for New Heritage Party, Mr. Peter Manangombe from the Christian Churches Monitoring Group, and last but not the least, Mr. Bright Chizonde from TIZ. Thank you very much for your contribution and for everyone for taking part in this discussion, and we wish you all the very best.
We are dismissed.
Yes. So thank you very much. Your phone? That's not one of the journalists. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Even as Mr. Mafa thanked all the panelists, we also want to thank him for his very able moderation this morning. Just a round of applause for Mr. Mafa as well. Right, so now we are coming to the main reason why we are here, which is the launch of the report itself. And for this purpose, I would like to call upon Diakonia Zambia Program Manager, Maimbo Karenge, who deliver the keynote speech and official launch of this study report.
Thank you, Tommy, for that. I would like to request about 5 minutes or even less of your time for me to do the keynote speech, and we finally launch the study. Thank you for an early morning, very engaging, interesting conversations coming from different angles. Distinguished guests, presidents of the opposition political party present, representatives of various political parties, civil society, can see the number of executive directors represented from civil society organizations, the media, our partners and friends of democracy. Good morning. Today, we gather for the most important milestone in Zambia's democracy journey, the launch of a study report on assessing the level of transparency in political party financing and the risk of illicit financing in Zambia, a study which was commissioned under the Deepening Democracy Facility, implemented by the Diaconia in partnership with BBC Media Action, with funding from the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office through the British High Commission in Zambia. The program runs from November 2023 to March 2026 and seeks to enhance and deepen democracy practices in Zambia. The DDF, as we call it shortly, uses an adaptive approach, an adaptive management approach that allows it to respond quickly to shifts in the democratic landscape of our country and responds and also capitalizes on opportunities for influencing, collaborating, and learning. And this project implementation is based on 4 areas that are mutually interrelated. And these areas speak to reforms and strengthening key democratic institutions and practices, which speak to the conversations we had around, is it the mindset shift? There's the paradigm shift that was being called to the citizens, but also institutional reforms to ensure that we have democratic institutions that are independent and are not influenced by external forces. The second area is around expanding and protecting the civic space. We understand that in a space that's a democratic space is shrinking. There's very little that we can achieve, even when we have conversations and evidence such as this study that is being launched today. The third area is deepening democracy through active citizen participation. We just heard in the just ended panel discussion where there was a lot of asks or some nudging around what citizens can do in that regard. And that only speaks to how best can you deepen democracy by citizens taking an active role in our democratic dispensation. Then the last one, which speaks to why we are here today, is enhancing and deepening accountability, transparency, and anti-corruption measures to see to it that our democracy is indeed deepened in between election cycle or in between elections. So the DDF takes a defined role as a co-creator, a facilitator, and a catalyst in supporting improved governance in Zambia. Its approach includes why we are here, which is generating evidence through research and analysis to inform evidence-based decision-making and inform policy reforms or legal reforms. Then convening and facilitating dialogue among key stakeholders and enhancing access to timely information. And I think we can see through this convening that this is just a practical aspect on how we work on this program. At the heart of democracy lies a simple truth, and this truth is citizens who are the electorate have the right to know how political parties are funded and whether those funds come with hidden strings. When financing is opaque, there is always the risk that policies and laws are shaped not by the will of the people, but the interest of those who fund political parties. And in the discussions earlier, we heard that this risk was emphasized by the panelists and also the comments that were coming from the people in the room, that if we don't have this enhanced, we don't have a law that speaks to this, we are risking our democracy being captured. The elite capture, the policy capture, the legal capture. And that is why we are here to just put our minds together and reflect on what needs to be done. Transparency in political financing is not a technical issue. It's about the integrity of our democracy. And integrity sometimes is very difficult because actually, from where we stand, it shouldn't even be negotiated. Integrity is integrity, and I like how Mr. Chizonde brought up about that point and emphasized on it. It's not a technical issue, but it's a matter of integrity. Yeah? And if we want governance that works for citizens, whether in the ruling party, in the opposition, then political parties must themselves be open, transparent, and accountable. Corruption and illicit financing undermines not only the fairness of elections, but also puts public interest or erodes public trust. When citizens cannot trace who funds their leaders, they cannot be sure whose interests are being served. The study, as we heard in the presentation earlier, as well as from the conversations that were led in the panel discussion, the study we are launching today provides evidence, as we have heard, that should not be ignored. We heard that only a quarter of political parties reported keeping detailed financial records. More than half do not check the sources of funds before accepting donations. Nearly 2/3 accept anonymous donations. And worrying, 3 out of the 4 political parties reported accepting funds from foreign governments, foreign companies, and other external entities. These practices put our democracy at risk. They open the doors to undue influence, policy capture, and corruption. But there's a path. I mean, that is a very dark side of the findings from the study, as they were presented, or as some of us had sight of the findings through the draft reports that were shared. You really get to worry. But that is not to make it look as if there's no way forward. For me, I believe, and for us as a program, we believe that there's a way forward. And already, Zambia has a constitutional foundation in Article 60 that provides for the regulation of political party financing. But what is missing is the legislation, and I think I can't belabor on that point. And our call to action, therefore, is we need to reflect on what reforms need to be in place to ensure that there is transparency in political party financing. And learning or hearing the conversation in the panel discussion earlier, I think there's need for us to really reflect on what really works in our context and not stick to literature, not stick to theory, and not stick to what worked elsewhere. But having that in an honest reflection of what really the context is this, what is obtaining on the ground is this, and therefore what can we do to make things better for our democracy to thrive. Even with the absence of that law, we believe that political parties should strengthen internal systems by developing financial management policies, conducting due diligence on donations, and channeling all transactions through formal banking systems. Though I heard again that there are reservations to some of this because there are pros and cons to this side. But like I mentioned earlier, how can we work within our context and make things work for both sides? And for the civil society and the media, we call upon you to continue shining the light, investigating and scrutinizing political financing practices to keep democracy accountable. And in closing, this report is not an end, but it's a beginning, not just to the civil society, not just to the partners that have been funded under this program, but to all of us in here, that this should be the beginning and not the end in itself. It is evidence that must inform action, because transparency in political party financing is not just about clean election. It should be, or it is about building accountable governance, protecting citizens' interests, and strengthening the very foundation of our democracy. Let us make democracy, let us make transparency the standard and not an exception. Not that there's this, but the bats. In all that we heard earlier, there was always the bats. It's good, yes, we can do this, but bats. So I think a call for us is Let us make this transparency standard and exclude that bats that we kept hearing. It's not an exception. The future of Zambia's democracy depends on this democracy, on this transparency that has brought us here. And we are not speaking from nowhere. We are speaking with evidence that has been generated by this good reports that is being launched today. I thank you.
As we launch the report, I'd like to call upon our Executive Director, Mr. Morris Nyambe, to come forward as well as Mr. Mtuna Chanda from BBC Media Action, so that we can have a brief photo session with copies of the executive summary of the report itself. You can stand. You can stand this. Where's a good vantage point, people with the cameras? Remove the podium.
Just help me.
Where do you move it?
Just move it this way. Just say.
You know, there's a struggle for which camera to look at. While this is ongoing, I would encourage our colleagues from TIZ to now distribute the copies of the executive summary. There's also a document which has a QR code, which will give you access to soft copy of the full report. Yes, that is that. Thank you so much. You take your seats. A hand for them. Right, so as we conclude our program, I would like to call upon our head of programs, Mr. Morris Raymond Mutale. Sorry. We'd like to call upon our head of programs, Raymond Mutale, to just give closing remarks before we exit this place. Sometime.
I know people are tired. I'll be very, very fast. I want to start by agreeing with President Kateka that this is a complicated issue. But that should not stop us from doing what is supposed to be done. I think we need to look at it beyond political affiliation, and we look at it from what is it that we need as a country to enhance how we govern ourselves. And this debate or this conversation has been going on for over 10 years now. And I just want to highlight the way it has been evolving. The 2014 Global Corruption Barometer emphasized one point, that if we do not regulate political party financing, you actually alienate citizens from, first of all, politicians, but also you alienate citizens from policy and legal reform. That's a given fact, it's evidence. And some of these things actually came out in terms of how people feel excluded from the processes, political processes that are going on. Just last year, we did a similar study around the cost of politics. And I'll just highlight two things that emanated from that study. One, the report was very clear that politics is about money now. Again, this came out in this conversation. But should politics be about money? Maybe those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves. The second aspect that came out from the cost of politics is that because of money, a lot of people are being excluded from participating in politics. These are realities that are coming from this issue. And that's why I agree that this is a complicated issue. What this study brings out and contributes to this conversation is the fact that if we do not take this seriously, illicit finances will trickle in our politics, and the damage they will cause will be too huge for us to handle. And so while we agree this is a complicated issue, I think that we need to also agree that this issue needs to be taken on head on. But what we need is to be strategic. What we need is to think country level, not political party level. So having said that, what from our perspective as the people that were on the ground and the people that are contributing to producing this evidence that should continue this conversation, what are the next steps? The first issue that I'll raise in terms of next steps is for us to continue with our advocacy around political integrity. And there are political parties that we've been engaging, will continue engaging you. There are a lot of things that we are doing in the background, and we'll bring those forward to you so that we not only validate, but also we are on the same page as we push these things forward. The other step that I want to bring to this conversation is the aspect, a subset of what we are talking about, campaign financing. A bit different from political party financing, but a big issue as well. Just to note that there is a tool that we've developed as Transparency International Zambia. We tested it in Kawambwa and Petauke, a tool around monitoring campaign financing. And maybe let me appeal to political parties. Please be receptive. Let's have a conversation around that too, and you appreciate how important it is, but also how it will contribute to this bigger conversation about political party financing. So those are the two next steps that we want to share with you. But let me end by thanking Diakonia for supporting this process, but also BBC Media Action, political parties. I know you are very busy people, but for you to find time to come and be with us up to the end of the program, I think that should be commended, and we encourage you to continue with that spirit. Also, to thank the media. They are always with us to publicize what we are discussing in the best interest of the nation, of course. And lastly, civil society organizations that are with us today. Let's continue working together. And I wish you the best in your individual endeavors today. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. The program has ended, but ensure that before you leave, you have gotten your copies of the executive summary. There's also a sheet of paper with the QR code. So you use your phone on that code for you to have access to a soft copy of the full report. Also ensure that you have signed the attendance list in case there's anyone who hasn't seen that, and also the list that relates to logistics. Thank you so much.